So, a quick recap. What we have done is we created this object. We added lots of different fields like pick list values, um, you know, date field and all. Date time. We understood what restricted pick list field is, and we also try to understand, the API name versus the label name on a pick list field and what advantages that would bring. And we have also seen loading the data from the backend, like what what it does. We also try to understand what a required field is, what a help text is, and then what a unique field is. Marking a field as unique, what advantages or disadvantages that it would have. Um, so um, now what I've so these are some of the things that we have seen while creating this object and adding these two fields. Let me add. Okay, now what we have done here is uh, we have created uh, postal code, postal code, city, and stuff. So let's add a field called country to this. Just to learn. In reality, we might need or we might not need, but just to learn a concept of dependent pick list, let me add a field called country here. Okay. Um, so let me add setup. Go to object manager, and then I'll find our session object. Okay, in fields and relationships, we have state, street, everything, right? So let me add a field called country, which is of course going to be a pick list field. I'll just say India. Okay. Yeah, let's restrict the pick list values to the defined set. We don't want any country that we are not doing business with wants to be here. All other fields are good. So let's um, so we have the profile. We can just give it, or we can just make it available only for system admin. Click next and save. Okay, good. So we have a country field as well. So if you go here, so if I am trying to create a new session record, so topic would be some test webinar on 27:12 p.m. So 11 is intermediate. So we have all this, and you see we have a country field and we have state field. So now let me rearrange the field a little bit. Okay, so we'll talk about the page layout again, but I just want to talk to you about what this means. You see, we are adding all these fields here. Like the moment we are adding the fields, every new field that we are adding is is added one after the other. But you see here we got a necessity where, okay, topic is fine, schedule time is fine, agenda is fine, level is fine, street, city, state, and postal code, everything is fine. But wouldn't it be better if we add country before the state? Because after choosing the state, rather than choosing a country, let's say you're choosing India, the state values are useless, right? The state values that you are seeing are for Massachusetts and everything. So, like, let me rearrange the fields, and at the same time, let's talk about dependent pick list. So, what is mean by dependent pick list? Dependent pick list is nothing but, see, if I am choosing USA, I need to see the states like Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, and all that. If I choose a state of, if I choose a country, India, I need to see other states like New Delhi, Arunachal Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, whatever, like, the states that we have. Same way, if I choose another country, the values in the state pick list should be like displayed depending on the choice that we make in the country field. Okay. So that's dependent pick list. Like, dependent pick list is nothing but, so the values displayed in one field are dependent on the other. Okay. So this is a good example of, the dependent pick list. So let me just first reorganize the fields. Okay. And then we'll talk about dependent pick list. Now, reorganizing are nothing but, you see, when you click new, so whatever fields that you're seeing here, or when you click this one, whatever fields that you're seeing here, these are nothing but, uh, this is nothing but a page layout. In Salesforce, we have a concept called page layout. So the fields that you are seeing here, the fields that are organized here, are basically controlled by a page layout. So let's try to customize or configure the page layout in a way that we want it. Okay, so let's make it in a way that we want it, so that it's more flexible for us. So in order to configure the page layout, again, let's just go to our object. Okay. And then you see on the object, you see something called page layout. So let's click on page layout. You see, this is the page layout that is automatically created for us when we create an object. Okay, we didn't do anything. We never created a page layout. The moment we created an object, Salesforce automatically gave a page layout. Of course, we can create new page layouts whenever we want, but for now, let's work with the page layout that we have. So I'll just click edit. Okay, so this is the backend structure of the page. So let me move, sorry, country field right below the state, and let me reorganize some fields actually. um, I'll move schedule time here, agenda here, level here, street, uh, city and country. Like, I'm just reorganizing fields, that's it. I'm just doing nothing but dragging and dropping and telling, okay, how my field should look like, or where the field should look like. Okay, so I just reorganize some of the fields and I hit save. Okay, let me go here, do a refresh. See, the fields are reorganized and, showing in a two-column layout in a more cleaner fashion than what we had before. So even when you're trying to create new, you see, this is how it is. The topic is here, agenda, schedule, date, time. So but Salesforce doesn't allow us to create more than two-column layout. I think two-column layout is the limit. You cannot add a field to the right side of it. So two-column, unless you're building a custom UI, yeah, when you build a custom UI, you can do whatever you want. But for now, like as a standard UI, these are nothing but the standard UI components. Within the standard UI components, two-column layout is the maximum that we can create. Okay, so these are organized a bit more cleaner fashion right now. So that's the page layout that we have done, but we still have this. Now if I country, the state should return the values. Okay, but it is not returning like that. If I choose India, it's still returning the value. So first of all, what I'll do is I will add more pick list values to the state, because I only added these values to the pick list, right? I will add more pick list values to the state, and then take it from there. Okay, so go to the session object. Okay, I'll just go to the state. I'll just say new. Okay, I'll add. I added some states from India. Imagine these are the only states where we are doing business. Let me add. Oh man, I don't know any states from UK and Germany, but let me add just some. some. I mean, these are cricket teams that I know. That's why I'm just typing these. Yeah, these are fine. In Germany, I know I'll just say Germany state one. Just, for the sake of it. So we added a lot of pick list values here. Okay. So this is one pick list value where we are adding all the states. But still, if you come here and click new, okay, it will show all the values that we added. Okay, it is showing all the values that we added, but even if I choose a country, it is not changing anything. Okay, it is still showing whatever I have. Now there has to be some configuration that should be done by us to be able to establish this dependency, right? We need to say, you know what, for Germany, these are the two valid states, Germany state 1 and state 2. For UK, these are the two. So we need to like come up with some kind of configuration that does that. Okay, let's go here. Let's go to fields and relationships. Uh, okay, if you go to fields and relationships, do you see something called field dependencies here? So let me click field dependencies. Okay, I'll go back again. So in the fields and relationship section where you actually create fields or edit fields, there is something called field dependencies. So I'll click field dependencies. I'll click new. Controlling field is, what is a controlling field is country, and the dependent field is state. Of course, right? Controlling field is country and dependent field is state, because based on the country, your state values have to change. So I'll click continue. Now look at this. So for US, I'm just double clicking on this. I'm just doing nothing but. So for the country US, these are the valid values. For India, I'm just double clicking this. That's it. For Germany, Germany state 1 and Germany state 2. For UK, I'm just these two. So that's it. Like all I did is Salesforce is giving a good interface for us to be able to establish everything. So it's saying, hey, if the country is USA, these are the dependent values. India, these are the dependent. Germany, these are the dependent. UK, these are the dependent. And I just hit save. Okay. So the whole goal of this session is to understand, I mean, you can always figure out how to establish dependencies. You can try it out and you can do it. But the major goal is to let you guys know that there is a concept called field dependency in Salesforce, and we can use that feature. Okay. Any, sorry, I need to show it in practice, right? So here, let me just refresh it. So if I click new, this is all good. You see the state is what you call not activated, but I choose US. It is only showing the US states. Okay. If I choose India, it automatically showing me only India states. If it is Tamil Nadu, sorry, if it is Germany, it is only showing the German states. So this way, I'm we are seeing all the dependent pick list. Okay. Any question? I mean, this is basically the concept of dependent pick list. So pick list is one concept, and within the pick list we have dependent pick list, which is another good concept. And it's this is one good example. Country and state is one good example. Not only this, you will get so many scenarios where if the level is beginner, choose some options. If the level is intermediate, you need to choose some options. If the level is advanced, you need to choose some options. Okay. So for in these kind of situations, the dependent pick list will really be helpful. Okay. Any questions, guys? Okay. Now let me create another field called schedule time, right? I'll just create another field called end time, and I'll add it here. So I'll just say new field, date time. I'll mark it as end time. Okay. So next, I'm just accepting all the defaults. Okay. Now, if I see here and do a refresh, if I click new, see I get schedule time and end time. What should I do? Should I customize the page layout to move schedule time and end time closer? I should, right? Because this doesn't make sense. So let me go to the page layout and make some changes here. Okay. So I go to the page layout. I click edit. Let me move. Yeah, schedule time, end time here. So agenda, street, city. It can come this side. Level, country, state, postal code. Okay. So if we click new, so you see we have. Oh man, I should have added the schedule time first, right? Sorry. Um. All right. I should have interchange the fields. I'm just doing a drag and drop. That's it. Nothing fancy there. So let me refresh this. So I click new. Okay, now I have a good schedule time, end time, um, level, country, and all that. Okay, postal code and stuff. All right. Can we, do you think our session object is complete, or does it need any more things here? I think, I mean, at least from my point, from a data perspective, I think we have everything where we will be having the topic name, we have the agenda, we have the schedule time, end time, um, what kind of level it is, what is the address where this, what you call this webinar, this session is happening. We have address and everything. So I think for a session, for the session object, we have enough fields that we needed. We established field dependency and that stuff too. Now, do you think from a like think as a you are building this whole application, um, do we need any other rules or any validations, um, just to make sure that even by accident somebody doesn't make a mistake? Okay, let me tell you one example. Can the schedule time be greater than end time?
No.
No, in any scenario possible, the schedule time can never be greater than end time, right? But see, we are not. So as when we are building an application, I know nobody wants to put the end time, schedule time greater than end time, but sometimes, sometimes there is a possibility that it might happen. Like, they might click something, and you see here, we are saying the schedule time is 2 to 2019 and the end time, which is totally wrong, right? But right now, the system doesn't, what you call, allow them to, doesn't throw any rule or anything like that, or doesn't allow, um, doesn't prevent them from saving it. Okay. So I mean, this is bad data, right? Like, these can corrupt all the reports and everything. This is literally bad data. So um, what can be done at the field level? Like, you see, at the field level, Salesforce is giving an option whether we want to make a field mandatory or not, whether we want to make a field unique or not. Those are some of the things that Salesforce is giving. But how do we make sure that the end time is never less than scheduled time? You know, so this is when validation rules come into picture. So there is a concept called validation rules in Salesforce where, like, I think the name itself is explanatory. Validation rule. So a validation rule helps us to validate the data that is being put in. Okay. So whenever we are putting in some data, we need to ensure that as much as possible, we need to ensure that the right data is being captured. Okay. So that's why Salesforce is giving us a concept called validation rules, where we can write, like, we can configure some of the validation, we can configure the validation rule and throw some error messages. I'm sure you must all seen validation rules, right? When you're signing up for Google Forms, or when you're signing up for Facebook or anything like that, if you're typing in some information, would say, hey, you should be this, the data shouldn't be this, the data should be in this format. Like, there are so many things that are given by Salesforce. Now, there are two types of validation rules. Okay. One is system validation rule and another is data validation rule. Okay. So let me explain what those are. For example, okay, I'll just show you one example. Okay. So I'll just add one more field called email. Okay. So I just want to, just to show system validation, I just want you to, from a business perspective, email, I'll just say contact email. So I added another field just for the sake of it. I added another field called email address. Okay. Contact email. Good. Who is the responsible person for this in case anything is needed? So we can have this contact email field. Good. Now, remember I told you there are two types of validations that are present. One is system validation and another one is data validation. So data validation is nothing but we are validating the data that is being put in. Now, system validation is nothing but, here is the example. Okay, these are all actually system validation rules that are kicking in right now. You see, the invalid, so if there is a required field, right? Okay, there is these, like, let me just click save now. If I hit save now, Salesforce is showing, hey, these are marked as required field, complete this. Or if I type in some email address and hit save, Salesforce is, if it is not in the right format, Salesforce is saying automatically that you didn't put the right form, the email is not correctly validated, or these fields are required. See, these are called as, like, whatever that you are seeing right now are called as system validation rules. So system validation rules are nothing but when those are the things that are validated first. When somebody tries to hit save button, the moment they hit save button, the system validation rules kick in first. What are some of the examples of system validation rule? This one, field requiredness, when a field is required or not. If a field is required, unless all the required fields have a value, the transaction wouldn't proceed further. The transaction would get cancelled right there and say, hey, these fields are required. So now let me type in something, and then I just put some gibberish value in the email. So you see here, after the system, like, this is also a system validation, no? But if you notice, there is an order of execution within the system validation rules as well. There is an order of execution. Order of execution is nothing but what steps are evaluated first is what, like, when you hit save button, lot of things are happening, but all things are happening in a sequential order. The first thing that happened is Salesforce validated the required fields, whether the required fields are filled or not. Then it validated whether the email is in the right format. There is also a data type called phone. If you look at it, like if you're there is a data type called phone as well. So even that phone number will be validated whether it's in the right format or not. These are called system validation rules. Now, this one, the schedule time, and so you are entering the right date, you are entering the right end time, but the data is wrong. Like, you are saying in the end time field, you are entering the wrong data. So for those, like in order to prevent those, we write data validation rules. Okay, so there is a difference between system validation rules are provided to us out of the box by Salesforce. We are not doing anything. All we did is we just marked the field as required, but we didn't write any code for it. Here also we just created the data type as email, but we didn't write any logic in the back end that says, validate the data to make sure it is the right format. We didn't do anything like that. So these are called system. That's why the validations that are provided by system are called system validation rules. Now we are about to write some data validation rules. Okay. So our goal is end time should never be, or start time, schedule time should not be greater than or equal to, even like if both times are equal also it's stupid, right? Like, so start time and end time are same. Why do we even have a session? So schedule time should always be greater than end time. Okay, that's the rule we need to enforce. um okay, let me go to the session. Okay, now all we are doing is I'm still in the object manager, still in the object, and if you see there is something called validation rules here. So when I click validation rules, okay, click new. Okay, we'll just say what rule we are trying to enforce. And time should be greater. Now, see, this is easy. When I say this is easy, like these validations or anything, right? Any rules that you write, they have to follow certain format, because these are like this is a huge platform used by so many people. Um, Salesforce will lay some standards there. They will say, in the documentation, they will say, if you write a validation rule like this, we'll make sure it works. So there is a certain format that needs to be followed, and we'll just try to follow the same format. Okay. Now there are examples as well, like now remember one of the thing that I mentioned, validation rules or workflow, anything, any configuration that you do, they always follow the API name. On the front end, you see the label names, but for every field, right? Even for object, the object name that we created is session, but the API name is session double underscore C. Even for all the fields, schedule time is schedule underscore time double underscore C. End time is end underscore time double underscore C. These are nothing but API names. So any logic that we write, we always use the API name because API names are unique. Okay. So when should we throw an error? If, like, if start time is greater than end time, we should throw an error, right? Okay. So I'll just say insert field. Insert field is nothing but, okay, here we have all the field. Schedule time. Okay. I select schedule time. So schedule time is greater than, again I'm going to insert field, end time. Simple. All I'm saying is if schedule time is greater than end time, then throw a validation, right? Like we should display the error message. I'll just say So here, now, where do you want to display this message? There is also another option where we just want to display the message at the end of, or we display it near the field as well, like, or we can display near schedule. We can display it top of the page. So the error message is displayed at the top. If we display it near the field, it will be displayed near the exact field where we want to. Okay. So this is a validation rule. I just gave the name for this validation rule, some description, and I have this as active. When you inactivate, this rule will not kick in. So I just, I'm making sure it is active. So when do we want to throw the message? Okay, they also gave an example. When the discount percentage is greater than 30, throw an error. In the same way, for us, when the schedule time is greater than end time, of course, throw an error message. Schedule time cannot be greater than end time. Okay, let me just save it. So this is the validation rule. So let me just refresh it once. I'll try to create a new record. So when I hit save, the system validation rules kick in. I'll just say beginner. Okay, I filled all the things. I'll keep the schedule time as 15 and end time as 6. So this is a mistake, right? Schedule time is 15 and end time is 6. So if I hit save, you see, because I chose the validation rule to display the field, it displays the message here. Otherwise, it would display the message schedule time cannot be greater than on top of it. You see this? Um, we on the validation rule, if you see error location, let me just keep this as top of the page. Save it. You see, it is coming up here instead of at the actual field location. I mean, usually locating at the field is better because the field is highlighted in red color and the error message is coming up here. So the user doesn't have to waste time searching where the field is. Sometimes if the object is too bigger, it really depends on the situation, but nobody, usually most of the people doesn't care where the message is as long as the message comes up. Okay. Any questions on like we can do validation rules is such an important piece. Uh, we can do a lot of things with validation. Like let's say, I'm just saying, postal code. In US we follow postal code a lot, right? Like we follow postal code a lot. Let's say we have a requirement where if the country is US, postal code is mandatory. Okay, so our requirement, one of the other requirement is if the country is US, we need to populate the postal code no matter what. Now, in this case, can we make postal code field as required? Like while creating the field itself, can we make postal code as required? What? Sorry? So my requirement is if the country is USA, postal code is mandatory. So based on this requirement, do you think while creating the postal code field itself, or can I go to the postal code field and mark it as required, or should I have to find another way? No, if I make it required, right? Let's say I make postal code required. What would happen? Just like the topic field or the level field, it will always be required, irrespective of the country, right? But my requirement is I need to make it required only when the country is US. In other situations, I don't want to make the postal code. If let somebody say country is India, they can leave the postal code as empty. I don't care. But if the country is US, they have to fill in the postal code. That's my rule. So it's a conditionally required field. You know what I mean? It's not always required. See, whereas a level field is always required. That's why we have this star icon and we're asking them to fill it. But the postal code is a conditionally required field
where we are saying if the country is USA, you have to, no matter what, you have to enter a postal code. But if it is other country, if you know it, enter. If you don't know it, just leave it alone. That's our requirement. Okay, does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's write the option is, of course, validation rule. So we need to make sure when the country is USA and if the postal code is blank, throw an error message. Okay, so I'll go write another validation rule. I'll mark it as code. Okay, so now you see, if you see here, you can do lots of things here. Like there are functions that are available here that will help you to okay, like that would what you call that would help you to um, write validation rules. Okay, I'll get back to the functions in a second. So now, so country is USA and postal code is empty, right? So let me, yeah, I think I have an option to show you. So what kind of field is this one? Country is a pick list field, right? So whenever you are dealing with pick list field in validation rule, you need to do this. Okay, you need to use a function called text of. Okay, there is a function called text. Okay, so I'm just saying text of. So text of country is equal to USA. Okay, and because I mean there is a function called and as well. No, I mean you can do it like this, or it's you can do it like this too. So text of country is USA, and what do you say? Postal code is null, right? Like, so there is a function called is blank. Let's use that function. So I'm adding this. So is blank postal code, right? Yeah, is blank postal code. So all we are saying is if country is US, the text of the country is US and is blank postal code, we need to throw an error message saying okay. So when the country is USA, postal code is mandatory. Again, we can display it in the field or we can display it wherever we want. Okay, so now these are nothing but functions. See, text is a function, is blank is a function. So why do we need text? Okay, because this is a pick list field. Like if you are saying if city is Quincy, zip code is mandatory. If you want to write that, you don't need this. You can just simply say city double underscore C is equal to Quincy and is blank postal code. You can do that. But because country is a pick list field, okay, because country is a pick list field, you need to use this word text of country is equal to USA. Okay, I'll just let me just remove this and try. Okay, what we are saying is country is equal to USA and is blank. What is mean by is blank? So it checks automatically, it checks whether uh, what you call postal code is filled in or not. Do you guys remember a concept of statements in mathematics? Um, let me just try to remind you. Uh, So if you remember, like when we were kids, there is a mathematical concept called statements, where if it is an and condition, if two statements are true, then the resulting will be true. But if one of the statement is false, the resulting will be false. Whereas in our condition, even if one of the statement is true, the resulting condition is true. I mean, you don't really have to remember this, but in a similar, like this follows the statement concept. So country is USA and postal code is mandatory. Let's say if I use or condition here, what happens? How is the meaning change? This we are saying this even if country is USA or even if the postal code is if any of the one of the condition is true, throw an error message. But we don't want that, right? So like we want it like this, so there is a huge difference in using the and or. But of course, like as English language speaking people, even if you read it like a statement, we would understand. If country is USA and postal code is blank, throw an error message. Yeah, makes sense. But if I put it or here, country is USA or is blank postal code, nah, it doesn't make sense. That's a dumb rule. So check syntax. See, when I click check syntax, what's happening? Field country is a pick list field. Pick list fields are supported only in certain functions. Okay, so that's why what I'm doing is I'm wrapping it within a word called text. Okay, see now it says no errors found. Okay, it usually in olden days, people who are used with old functions, they use this one. Okay, I'll show you what this is. There is something a function called epic value. This is for pick list field. You need to put country here and USA here. I mean, this is old and like previously when the function text was not supported, we used to use that like is pick value countries USA then and is blank. But now don't even worry about it. Don't even think about it. Don't even complicate it. It's very simple. So for pick list, you just use text of if text of country is US and is blank postal code, just throw the error message. Okay. Now there is an option called is null as well. Rather than trying to understand the difference, just remember my word. Always use is blank. That's it. Any possible situation that you get, always use is blank. Don't, I mean, I clearly know the difference. Like, is null is useful for like, to compare number fields, to check whether some values are null or not. But whereas is blank does all the things that is null does with some more features as well. I'll show you when we are writing some triggers. What is the exact difference between like or where would some issues come up if you use is null, where is blank is used. That's why don't even think about all this. Just blindly use is blank. Any possible scenario that you get, just blindly use is blank. Okay. So text of country is USA and is blank is postal code. Throw an error message. Okay, so this is the second validation rule that we have. So all I'm going to do now is I go to session, the new, some number. I'll make end time even lesser. Okay, schedule time cannot be greater than, and then you see both validation rules. When the country is USA, postal code is mandatory. Let me fix this first one. I'll make it. Yep, it still throws an error message, and it says when the country is US, postal code is mandatory. Good. Now it's saved. So this validation rule is basically helping us to be able to validate the data. So in the system, only the right data exists, and like users may not have an intention of entering the wrong data. Like in the case of schedule time and end time, a user might not have the intention of entering a wrong data, but they might do fat finger, or they might be in a hurry and they might be entering some value. So as a developer or as an admin, whenever we are building a solution, we need to ensure that these things, these things, even though accidentally that might happen, have to be covered by us and make sure the application is foolproof. You know, in a way that even if somebody wants to make a mistake, we shouldn't let them. We should allow them to make that mistake. Okay. Any questions on validation rules or dependent picklist? You can do thousands of things with validation rules. I just gave couple examples, but you can do a lot of things with validation rules. So now what I want to talk about is I want to talk two things. One, I just want to give an example, like, so all the technologies that are involved in Salesforce. I mean, not technologies, the logics. Okay, I'm just gonna write something. Okay, so if you want to broadly categorize, I'll just do one more page. Okay, so if at all somebody asks you to broadly categorize Salesforce into like top some skills, I think these are the things that I have noted down here are the skill sets. Okay, so I mean, I think it's important for anybody to be able to broadly categorize the skills that are involved in any technology. Here is the thing: in an interview, somebody would ask you a question, "Hey, what have you been doing?" Or so far, what's your experience? Or talk to me about your experience. There are so many questions that an interviewer might ask, and you could say, "Hey, I've been working in Salesforce for so and so years. And I'm good with declarative logic, formula logic, process logic, UI development, integrations, database management, and release management." Because these are like the whole Salesforce technology can be summarized into these seven things, or seven, or whatever the number here. Yeah, probably seven. Okay, let's see what these are. Declarative logic. Declarative logic is nothing but point and click. It's also called as point and click or declarative logic. It is nothing but all the things that we are doing just with mouse clicks, like creation of objects or configuring the page layout. We configure the page layout, or adding fields, things like that. All the things, creating a tab, creating an app, organizing the tabs, all these things. We have been doing so many things just with mouse clicks, right? We are not writing code or anything. So all the things that you can do in Salesforce with those mouse clicks are known as declarative logic. So what is formula logic? Formula logic is nothing but the validation rules. I mean, not only validation rules, there are so many other things that we can do very similar to validation rules using formula logic. Formula logic is nothing but you're doing some basic calculations like, hey, if this field is this and this field is this, throw an error. Or, for example, there is another opportunity where we can use formula logic here. Like we have, sorry, so we have a start time and end time. Okay. So we have a start time and end time here, schedule time and end time. And what we can do here, we can make sure to calculate the duration. So like when you have a start time and end time, can we not calculate the duration? So let's say if start time is 12 o'clock and end time is 2 o'clock, 2 p.m., what is the duration? Duration is 2 hours or 120 minutes. So can we make can we write a formula to be able to calculate end time minus start time, and it would automatically give us the duration, right? So we can, so like while going back here, if you go to fields and relationships, you see there is a field type called formula. Okay, so formula is nothing but exact scenario, whatever scenario that I spoke about, schedule time versus end time, like end time minus schedule time. So you can create a formula field and write a formula, uh, and that formula field will automatically tell us what is the difference between these two. So like those things, all the things that you do with some basic arithmetic logic will come under formula logic. Okay, declarative is just all the point and click stuff that you do. Formula logic is writing formulas. Okay, see, just look at here. Even while writing a validation rule, see, anywhere that you see this screen, like in Salesforce, you will see this exact screen where you have insert field, insert operator, and the functions. Anywhere that you see this screen, you are using a formula logic. Okay, so there are like places like process builder, workflow, formula fields, and validation rules where you use formula logic. So all those places like where you use formula logic are known as it's formula logic. Now, then there is process logic. What is process logic? Process logic is nothing but writing FX code. Like, there are some use cases where, some complex use cases where declarative logic and formula logic will not be able to help you. In those cases, we need to, for example, I'll tell you in this situation. So we have a schedule time and end time, right? Okay. Um, we need to ensure, like there is a requirement that within this schedule start time and end time there can only be 3 webinars at a time. You cannot have more than 3 webinars at any given point of time. So your requirement is like this. Hey, the requirement comes up that says, hey, at any given point of time we cannot have more than 3 webinars. Now, what would you do? You cannot use a validation rule or anything like that. So we have to write a trigger to be able to query, check the start time and end time of this, query any of the existing records that exist in the system between the start time and end time, and check whether they are one or two. If they are already, if there are already three, you need to throw an error message saying, hey, you cannot create the fourth one because we reached the limit for the time. If there are only two, you need to allow. So that's a complex logic, right? I mean, it seems straightforward, but putting it in form of a rule and actually writing it and building it is a little bit complex, because you are writing queries, you are checking the numbers, you are querying the records between that specific start time and end time. So all those things. So I mean, not only that, anywhere where you write Apex, basically you're using code. If you're using basic arithmetic logic to solve problems, that's formula logic. If you're using only point and click tools to solve any business issues or configure, that's declarative logic. If you're using code, that's process logic. Now, UI development. UI development is nothing but, you see, you have session object here, right? So if you don't like this UI, you can completely build a custom UI in whatever way you want. Like, you can build your own custom user interface development. And there are some cases where, um, you know, like if you feel like, just like the company that I work for, we always feel like this UI is, I mean, this UI is actually so powerful, but, but, uh, some of the requirements, like I told you, if it is beginner, display a set of 10 fields. If it is advanced, intermediate, display a set of different 10 fields. So, like, some companies will have requirements like that. And so, and hence the standard UI that you are seeing here may not be catering those needs. So we need to build the whole UI ourselves. Okay, so that's UI development. Now deployment is nothing but, moving the metadata. I think we spoke about what metadata is. Metadata is nothing but all the configurations, like validation rules that you're writing, objects that you're creating, fields that you're creating, apps that you're creating, tabs creating, all the metadata. Like moving the metadata from one environment to another is nothing but deployment. And there are some deployment techniques which we'll discuss later. And database management. Database management is nothing but, see, we are creating the tables, not only creating the tables, but what we are doing. Remember, I showed you workbench. So if we are let's say we have to load a 20,000 records or 50,000 or a million records into a table. So we do it using Excel sheet. We are using Workbench or data loader or any other tools. We load the data directly into Salesforce. Or if you are moving an application from a legacy system into Salesforce, we do all those like data movement and everything, right? So that's database management. And then integrations is nothing but we would want to integrate Salesforce with third party applications. For example, third party application, uh, let's say if somebody sign up let's say if somebody sign up for a webinar and it's a paid webinar. So what would you do if it is a paid webinar? The moment they sign up for a webinar, we need to give them, hey, uh, give your credit card details and stuff. So credit card details, we are not a financial company, right? So the credit cards are maintained by Visa or Mastercard, whoever they are. So when they enter the credit card details, what should we do? We need to contact Mastercard or Visa and ensure that this card is valid and all the details he's providing or he or she is providing is valid, and he's eligible to make a purchase of 500,000 whatever dollars it is. And only once they approve, that's when we need to process the transaction, right? Like if you go to Amazon, you are typing in the information, the credit card information. Amazon is not a bank. So basically, depending on the first four characters that you enter in credit card, they will determine whether it's Mastercard, Visa, or whatever it is. And after then, you will enter the billing address and all that. So once that information is entered, what they will do, they will make a web service call out, like from this application, from Salesforce or from Amazon, wherever it is. So they talk to the credit card database. They say, hey, I have a customer with all these details, with this name, this last name, this billing address, and this, and this customer is purchasing $500 worth stuff. Is it okay? And then the credit card company, they will have some code that will query the data and it will say, yes, this is good. And only when they say, yes, this is good, the transaction will be completed from your side. So these are like, I mean, there are so many millions and millions of use cases of integration, but I'm just saying one of the example is that, like, when you are making credit card transaction, you need to make integration is nothing but you write apex code. It is part of a process logic, but you write apex code or you write code within the system to be able to do those kind of transactions. Okay, so now I think we are already doing declarative logic. We just started formula logic with what you call by writing some validations. And tomorrow, before you come, I want you guys to write the formula, like, n time minus schedule time, to calculate the duration. I want you to create a field called duration and do a, subtraction of n time minus start time. And I want the duration to be displayed in minutes. So, however you do it, do the calculation and display the duration in minutes. Okay. Um, but we'll touch base all this. See, UI development is nothing but, see, you are creating a tab, you are creating an app, you are customizing the page layout. All those things come under like declarative logic, and at the same time they also come under UI development. So these are interlinked to each other. But if somebody wants to high level categorize Salesforce into like what are all the things that are involved in Salesforce or what are you good at, I would categorize at a high level into these 7 categories. Now, if within each category we have stuff like we have like here it would be formula fields, validations, workflows, approval process comes under form. Here, Apex classes, Apex triggers, batch Apex, schedule Apex, those. Here, it would be Visual Force, Lightning development. Here, deployment use, change sets, or change sets are recently Salesforce introduced something called SFDX. You can do that. Database management, we talk about, you know, creating tables, tools like Workbench, data loader. Integrations, you can talk about REST API, under each main category, you have some line items, but this is the, you know, what you call, this is high level categorization of the whole Salesforce as a technology. I'm saying you, this is really, really, really powerful. When I say really powerful, it is so hard. Like I mean, I know when we talk about it, when you see these words, when we talk about it, it might be like, yeah, it makes sense. You might be thinking it makes sense. But imagine you are working in another technology, like, you are working in a different technology. Try to categorize, if you are already working in a technology, try to categorize the whole technology into 4 or 5 major things, and that should cover the entire technology. So that the reason why this categorization is important is, um, in an interview, when you talk about it, what happens is, when they ask, hey, talk to me about your experience, or talk to me about your technical skills, when you're talking about it, when you talk about 2 or 3 items, and if you miss something, they will ask you a question. Oh, do you have experience in this? Did you ever work in this? Rather than that, we shouldn't even give them a chance. The person who asks, hey, talk to me about your technical experience, we should close the deal right there. We should say, hey, I've worked on declarative formula, process, UI, and we need to talk about 30 seconds about, I've done object creation, app creation, page layout customization in declarative logic. In formula logic, I created validations, I created formula fields, I created upload process. I've built lots of Apex classes, Apex triggers. I've built Lightning components in UI. I started building Lightning web components as well. In deployments, I moved changes from one environment to another using chain sets or force.com ID or and migration. I've used data loader or workbench to do day-to-day data management activities, and also load data from legacy systems into Salesforce. I've integrated Salesforce with third-party applications and use REST API and SOAP API, but very recently I've been using REST APIs a lot. So if you talk 30, 10, like 15, 20 seconds about each topic and categorize everything, 99% of the times they wouldn't even have a question to ask you. Okay, because you have covered everything that's there in Salesforce. So, like, tone, the the tone of the interview changes a lot. Whereas if you talk about very few things, um, they will ask you, oh, do you have experience in this? Do you have experience? They will have to explicitly ask you. So we are not letting them give a chance. Like, we are not giving them a chance to be able to pinpoint any specific area. We are just saying we covered everything. Okay, then the interview will be like, oh, this is our scenario, this is what we are trying to do. So that's I mean, it's a good way of sealing the deal. And I would say, even if you're working in a different technology, or if you're trying to face interviews or anything, I would always want you to, like, summarize or categorize things into broader groups and have the ability to be able to talk about it for some time. Okay, does it make sense? All right, guys. Sorry, I have an appointment at 12, so I have to leave right now. I wanted to take a bigger session, but this came up suddenly. So yeah, but I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow same time, probably around 10. I want it to be 10, 10 or 10:15 at the same time, but I'll be sending an invite for that. Okay. Thank you, guys.